You can eat in the den. My stepdaughter said it without lowering her voice, and every conversation around my Thanksgiving table stopped at once. Vanessa Cole stood behind the chair beside my husband, one hand resting on its carved oak back. The place setting that had been there an hour earlier was gone. No plate, no folded napkin, no water glass, just a bare stretch of tablecloth where I had sat for nearly 2 decades. I thought she had made a mistake. Then, she slid the chair away from the table. "This dinner is for Dad and his family," she said. The second came when she nodded toward a glossy folder on the sideboard. Maple Terrace Senior Living was printed across the front in gold letters. "Dad and I already agreed that you need a smaller place after New Year," she said. "Somewhere with staff. Somewhere safer." I looked at my husband. Robert did not correct her. He sat at the head of the table in the blue sweater I had bought him for our anniversary. His hands were folded beside his plate. He stared at the sweet potatoes as if they contained instructions he was afraid to read. That was the second shock. The third came when Vanessa smiled and said a real estate photographer would arrive the following Tuesday. She had already scheduled pictures of my house. My house. The brick ranch I had purchased 12 years before I married Robert. The home whose mortgage I had paid off with money from my retirement account and the sale of a small rental property. The home where I had planted every boxwood, repaired every loose cabinet hinge, and hosted every Thanksgiving since Vanessa was in middle school. Around the table sat Robert's younger brother, 2 cousins, Vanessa's husband Mason, and my 16-year-old granddaughter Lily. Not one of them met my eyes. The turkey rested beneath a foil tent on the kitchen island. The smell of sage, butter, and roasted onions filled the room. A football game murmured from the television in the family room. Outside, wet snow tapped against the windows and melted as soon as it touched the glass. I was 58 years old. I had spent 31 years working in Air Force acquisition and logistics. I had negotiated engine support contracts worth more money than anyone at that table would earn in 10 lifetimes. I had sat across from colonels, corporate attorneys, and defense executives who believed a quiet woman was an easy woman to corner. Vanessa had mistaken my patience for surrender. She had made the same mistake for years. I looked at the empty space where my plate had been. Then I looked at the Maple Terrace folder. Finally, I looked at Robert. "Did you agree to sell this house?" I asked. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Vanessa answered for him. He agreed that changes have to be made. That was not what I asked. She exhaled as though I were a difficult customer at the end of a long workday. "Marianne, please do not turn this into a scene." I almost laughed. She had removed my seat, announced my relocation, and scheduled a photographer for property she did not own. But I was the one making a scene. I picked up my apron from the kitchen counter and folded it once. Then I walked toward the front hall. Vanessa's shoulders relaxed. Mason reached for his water. Robert finally lifted his head, and I saw relief in his face. They thought I was leaving. I passed the coat closet and stopped beside the front door. Vanessa gave a small, satisfied nod. "Thank you," she said. "This is hard enough without drama." I checked the clock above the hallway mirror. 6 minutes after 4. Right on time. Headlights swept across the front windows. A dark green sedan pulled into the driveway behind Vanessa's sport utility vehicle. I opened the door before the bell rang. Cold air rolled into the foyer. Nora Bennett climbed the porch steps carrying a canvas document case. She had retired from the Montgomery County Recorder's office after 27 years and had lived across the street from me since before Robert and I married. Snow dotted her gray hair and the shoulders of her camel coat. She was not alone. Beside her stood Dana Ruiz, the attorney who had revised my trust in the spring. Vanessa's expression changed. "What are they doing here?" she asked. Nora wiped her shoes on the mat. Dana stepped inside and held up a sealed envelope. "You asked us to bring the complete file," Dana said. I closed the door. The latch clicked. Then I turned back toward the dining room. "You told me this meal was for family," I said. "Before anyone decides who belongs in this home, we need to discuss why a lender received an application to borrow against it without my permission." Mason's fork slipped from his hand and struck his plate. Robert stood so quickly, his chair scraped the floor. Vanessa did not move at all. For the first time that afternoon, she looked afraid. Before I tell you what was inside Dana's envelope, I want to ask you something. Have you ever stayed quiet because you believed keeping the family together mattered more than defending yourself? Think about your answer and stay with me, because what happened next did not just expose a plan to take my house. It exposed the reason my stepdaughter had spent years trying to make me disappear. Dana placed the sealed envelope on the sideboard but did not open it, not yet. I had learned long ago that documents have more power when people understand the story that made them necessary. I walked back to the dining room and pulled a chair from the wall. It was not the chair Vanessa had removed. I placed it at the far end of the table and sat down. Nora stayed near the doorway. Dana stood beside the sideboard with the calm posture of someone who had spent years watching people lie in conference rooms. Robert remained standing. Marianne, he said, I do not know anything about a loan. I believed that he did not know all of it. That was part of the problem. Sit down, I said. He obeyed. Vanessa folded her arms. This is ridiculous. I brought information about a senior community because you have been tired lately. That is all. You also arranged for someone to photograph the house. For insurance purposes. Mason looked at her. You told me it was for a listing. She turned toward him. Not now. Dana glanced at me, but I shook my head. There would be time for the papers. First, they needed to hear how a woman trained to catch irregularities had ignored the irregularities inside her own family. I met Robert at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when I was 34. I was a captain, assigned to a contracting squadron supporting aircraft sustainment programs. My days were filled with cost proposals, delivery schedules, inspection clauses, and meetings in windowless rooms where everyone drank coffee that tasted faintly of cardboard. Robert was a senior master sergeant in an Air Force Reserve airlift wing. He supervised aircraft maintenance crews and could identify a hydraulic leak from 20 feet away. He had grease under his fingernails even after scrubbing them, a dry sense of humor, and the habit of checking every door twice before bed. His wife, Claire, had died from ovarian cancer 4 years earlier. Vanessa was 11. The first time Robert brought her to a squadron picnic, she wore a yellow softball jersey and refused to speak to me. She stayed close to her father and watched every woman who approached him as if she had been assigned perimeter security. I understood. A child who loses a mother does not see a new woman as a gift. She sees a possible replacement. I never asked her to call me Mom. I never moved Claire's photographs. I kept the blue ceramic bowl Claire had made in a pottery class on the kitchen shelf because Vanessa liked seeing it there. On Claire's birthday, I drove Vanessa to the cemetery and waited in the car unless she asked me to walk with her. For a while, I thought we were building something honest. She began asking me for help with algebra. She let me drive her to softball practice. When she had her first heartbreak, she sat on the floor of my office and cried into a box of tissues while I pretended not to notice how many she used. Robert and I married 3 years after we met. By then, I already owned the house in Beaver Creek. I had bought it when I was 29, after a civilian supervisor told me single women were better off renting because home repairs were too much trouble. I signed the closing papers the following month, mostly because I disliked being told what I could not manage. The house was modest. 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a maple tree that buried the yard in leaves each fall. But it was mine. When Robert moved in, I called it ours. Over time, everyone forgot the difference. Robert paid for groceries and utilities. I continued paying the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and major repairs. We did not keep score. At least I did not. When Vanessa enrolled at Ohio State, I covered the part of her tuition that Robert's education benefits did not. When she needed a reliable car for an internship in Columbus, I used a performance bonus for the down payment. When she married Mason, I paid the deposit on the reception hall after his parents had a medical emergency. I did those things because I loved Robert and because I had grown to love her. Not in the easy way. People love children who run toward them with open arms. I loved her in the patient way you love someone who keeps one foot near the exit. After college, Vanessa became a commercial loan documentation specialist at a regional credit union. She was good at it, precise, organized, able to spot a missing signature before most people had finished reading the first page. Mason owned a custom cabinet company. He started with a rented workshop and 2 employees, then expanded into commercial interiors for restaurants and medical offices. For several years, the business did well. Vanessa and Mason bought a large house, leased expensive vehicles, and posted vacations that made their life look effortless. Robert admired them. I wanted to believe the image. The first real warning came 3 summers earlier, when Mason asked if we could loan him money for a new computerized cutting machine. He called it a temporary bridge. The amount was $60,000. I said no, not because I wanted him to fail, because I had spent my career reviewing business cases, and the numbers he showed us did not support the debt he already carried. Vanessa took my refusal personally. You do not trust him, she said. I trust numbers, I replied. These numbers are asking for patience, not another loan. Robert wanted to help. We argued for 2 days. In the end, he gave them $20,000 from his savings without telling me until after the transfer. I was angry, but I let the matter go. That became a pattern, Vanessa asked. Robert avoided conflict. I absorbed the consequence. At Thanksgiving the following year, she joked that I cared more about spreadsheets than people. At Easter, she told relatives I kept Robert on an allowance. At Lily's birthday dinner, she said the house would feel warmer once someone younger updated it. Each comment was small enough to dismiss. Together, they formed a map. I simply refused to read it. The campaign to move me out began in September. Vanessa arrived one Saturday morning carrying coffee, pastries, and a measuring tape. She said she wanted to help us prepare for retirement. I reminded her that I had already been retired for 18 months and Robert for nearly 7 years. Exactly, she said. You should be enjoying life, not maintaining a house this size. The house was 1,900 square feet, not a palace. She walked through each room making notes on her phone. In the hall bathroom, she measured the width of the doorway. In the basement, she photographed the stairs. In the backyard, she pointed to a cracked patio stone and said it was a fall hazard. Robert followed her like an assistant inspector. I watched from the kitchen. What are you doing with those measurements? I asked. Vanessa smiled. Just planning. Planning what? Options. That was one of her favorite words. Options sounded harmless, professional, benevolent. It also allowed her to avoid saying what she meant. 2 weeks later, brochures began appearing. Maple Terrace, Willow Creek Independent Living, The Oaks at Fairborn. They arrived by mail with my name printed on the envelopes. I had never requested information. Vanessa said she had filled out a few online forms so we could compare amenities. Robert thought it was thoughtful. I thought it was invasive. Then she began talking about the house as though it were already available. Mason could convert the basement into a rental suite, she said one evening. Lily might want the maple bedroom set. The dining table would fit beautifully in her own house once they removed a wall. Each sentence moved part of my present into someone else's future. I told Robert it needed to stop. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. She is trying to help. She is inventorying our life. You know Vanessa. She gets enthusiastic. I do know Vanessa, I said. I also know documentation. She is creating a plan. He frowned. You make everything sound like a procurement investigation. That hurt, because it was meant to. For years, Robert had admired the habits my career gave me. I kept records. I read fine print. I asked what happened if assumptions failed. Those habits had protected us through insurance claims, contractor disputes, and his mother's estate. Now that the questions made him uncomfortable, he treated them like a character flaw. The next warning arrived by certified mail on a Tuesday in October. I almost did not sign for it. The envelope came from Heritage Equity Lending in Cincinnati, a company I had never contacted. Inside was a notice thanking Robert and me for our interest in a home equity conversion product. not a completed loan. A preliminary application. The letter said a property valuation representative would contact us. I read it twice. Then a third time. My name appeared beside a reference number. So did Robert's. I carried the letter to his workshop in the garage. Do you know anything about this? I asked. He took off his safety glasses and read the first page. His face tightened. Vanessa mentioned gathering information. She said it would show what the house could provide if we ever needed long-term care. Did you authorize an application? Not an application, just a planning worksheet. Did you sign anything? He hesitated. That was my answer. What did you sign, Robert? A couple of electronic forms. She sent them to my tablet. I thought they were consent forms to request estimates. Did you read them? He looked offended. Of course I read them. Every page. He looked away. Most of them. I felt a cold pressure behind my ribs. In acquisition work, the most expensive disasters rarely began with a dramatic lie. They began with a person signing something because someone familiar said it was routine. I called the number on the letter. The representative asked security questions, then told me the application was under review and incomplete because the ownership documentation did not match the information submitted. I asked what information had been submitted. She said she could not release the file until I completed an identity verification process. I completed it that afternoon. The following morning, I received secure access to copies. The first page listed Robert as the primary applicant. The second listed me as a non-occupying spouse who expected to relocate within 90 days. I was not a non-occupying spouse. I had no intention of relocating. Attached to the file was a statement authorizing an appraisal. My signature appeared at the bottom. It looked convincing. It was also not mine. The person who created it had copied my signature from a roofing contract I had signed 4 years earlier. I knew because the final stroke of my last name bent upward in a peculiar way after the pen caught on the carbonless paper. The same flaw appeared in the scanned authorization. Someone had not imitated my signature. Someone had reproduced it. There was also a typed letter stating that Robert's adult daughter would assist with the transition and eventual sale of the property. Vanessa's name was at the bottom. Her title at the credit union appeared beneath it. I sat at my desk for nearly an hour. Anger came later. First came grief. Someone I had defended for 20 years had turned my trust into a document source. I called Nora. She came over carrying a yellow legal pad and the reading glasses she wore on a chain around her neck. She had spent most of her career supervising deed indexing and fraud prevention at the county recorder's office. When I showed her the packet, she did not gasp. She became very still. That was worse. The good news, she said, is that no mortgage has been recorded against your property. The lender caught the ownership mismatch before closing. And the bad news. Someone took several deliberate steps to get this far. She explained that a lender could review public deed information, but no one could legally pledge my separately titled property without my valid signature on the mortgage instrument. A final mortgage would normally require notarization and recording with the county. A spouse could not simply promise away a house that was not in his name. A daughter certainly could not. Nora helped me enroll in the county's property alert system. Then she told me to freeze my credit, preserve every email, and contact an attorney before confronting anyone. That was how Dana Ruiz entered the story. Dana reviewed the packet, my deed, my trust, Robert's electronic forms, and the messages Vanessa had sent him. After 2 hours, she leaned back in her chair. Your husband signed an authorization to obtain financial estimates, she said. He did not sign a mortgage. He also did not have the authority to encumber your property by himself. What about my signature? If you did not sign it, that is evidence of attempted fraud. The word attempted mattered. No money had been dispersed. No lien had been recorded. But someone had tried. Dana advised me to notify the lender's fraud department in writing and submit an identity theft affidavit. She also advised me not to accuse Vanessa until we knew exactly who had uploaded the documents. I followed every instruction. Vanessa had never understood that once I opened a file, I finished the review. The lender's fraud department responded within 5 business days. They provided an activity log showing the application had been created from an internet address associated with Vanessa's home. The contact email belonged to her. The uploaded files had metadata linked to the document software used by her credit union. The fraud officer also found something the first representative had not mentioned. A personal financial statement was attached as supporting information. It belonged to Vanessa and Mason. Their net worth was listed as nearly $1 million. That number was fiction. Dana obtained permission for me to see the pages directly connected to my identity and property. The rest came from records Vanessa had left in a storage box in our basement months earlier when she said her home office was being remodeled. I had never opened the box. After the lender's letter, Dana told me to inventory anything belonging to us that might have been used. At the bottom of the box, beneath old tax folders and equipment invoices, I found a demand notice from a commercial lender. Mason's cabinet company owed a balloon payment of $284,000. The payment was due in January. Vanessa had signed a personal guarantee. Their house already carried a first mortgage, a second mortgage, and a tax lien. The business had expanded too quickly. A hospital contract had been canceled. A warehouse sprinkler failure ruined materials that insurance only partly covered. Mason kept borrowing because he believed the next project would rescue the last one. Vanessa kept documenting the loans because that was what she knew how to do. By summer, they had no room left. No more equity. No more credit. Only my house. I understood the mechanism now. What I did not understand was the cruelty. Why remove my seat at Thanksgiving? Why turn family against me? Why make me appear confused, tired, and unsafe? Dana answered that question with one sentence. A bad financial plan still needs a story people are willing to believe. Vanessa could not borrow against my house while I was alert, present, and objecting. But if she convinced Robert and the family that I needed supervised living, then my disappearance could be framed as care. She did not need everyone to understand the loan. She only needed them to accept the transition. The brochures were not concern. The measurements were not safety. The missing chair was not impulse. They were parts of one narrative. She wanted the family to see Robert as the center of the home and me as someone already leaving it. That realization did something anger had not. It ended my confusion. For years, I had asked myself whether I was too sensitive, whether Vanessa's comments were grief, whether her entitlement was simply closeness with her father. The loan packet removed ambiguity. She had a deadline, a method, and a reason to make me small. I did not tell Robert immediately. That decision may sound harsh. It was not punishment. It was preservation. Robert loved his daughter with the blind loyalty of a man who had once promised a dying wife he would protect their child. Whenever Vanessa cried, he became the young widower who had stood beside a hospital bed and said he would never let their daughter feel abandoned. Vanessa knew that. She had used it since childhood, sometimes without realizing it. Now the stakes were too high for another vague conversation in the garage. Dana advised me to gather facts, update my estate plan, and decide what I wanted before confrontation. I had revised my trust months before the loan packet, after a smaller warning. In March, Robert underwent minor shoulder surgery. While he was recovering, Vanessa came to help organize medications. One afternoon, I heard her asking him what would happen to the house if I died first. Robert laughed and said we had wills. Vanessa asked whether the house would pass directly to him. He said he assumed so. I entered the room. It does not, I said. Both of them looked startled. My existing will allowed Robert to live in the home for the rest of his life, but ownership would eventually pass to a veterans housing charity and to Lily's education trust. Vanessa's face hardened. You are giving the house to strangers. I am funding transitional housing for women veterans, I said. And part of it goes to Lily. What about Dad? He has lifetime occupancy and retirement income. She called the plan insulting. Robert asked me later whether I could simply leave the house to him and trust him to make the right decision. I asked what the right decision meant. He did not answer. I knew. It meant leaving the house to Vanessa. I revised the trust with Dana in April. I strengthened Robert's lifetime occupancy protection, but added conditions. He could live there. He could not mortgage, transfer, lease, or assign rights. If he moved permanently, the property would pass according to the trust. I also named an independent trustee. I did not tell Vanessa. I tried to tell Robert twice. The first time, he said he was tired. The second time, he said estate talk made holidays depressing. So I stopped trying. That silence had consequences. By Thanksgiving morning, I knew the loan had been frozen. The lender had flagged the file. My credit was locked. My deed alerts were active. Dana had prepared formal notices, preserving evidence, and directing all future contact through her office. I was safe. The question was whether my marriage was. At 11 that morning, Vanessa arrived carrying centerpieces and a stack of printed place cards. She took over the kitchen without asking. She moved my mother's gravy boat because it looked dated. She replaced my cloth napkins with beige disposable ones. She told Lily to hide the hand-painted turkey decorations because they looked childish. Then she placed the Maple Terrace folder on the sideboard. I asked Robert to come into the bedroom. Do you know, she invited a photographer, I asked. He sighed. She said it was only to understand the house's market value. Did you agree to sell? No. Did you agree I should move? He sat on the edge of the bed. I agreed we should discuss options. With me, he did not answer. With me, Robert. Vanessa thinks you will refuse anything she suggests. That is because she is suggesting my removal from my home. He stared at the carpet. Nobody is removing you. The sentence was barely out of his mouth when Vanessa called from the dining room. Dad, where do you want Marianne to eat? Robert closed his eyes. I waited. He did not stand. That was when I texted Nora. Bring Dana. Bring everything. 4 o'clock. Now, at the Thanksgiving table, the plan that had taken months to build began to collapse in minutes. Dana opened the sealed envelope. Vanessa stepped forward. You have no right to show my private financial information. Dana's voice remained even. I am not here to disclose anything unrelated to Marianne's property or identity. I am here because my client asked me to witness a family conversation and explain the documents that concern her. Your client, Marianne, is my client. Vanessa looked at Robert. You knew she hired a lawyer. He shook his head. I did not. Of course not, Vanessa said. She does everything behind your back. I almost answered. Dana spoke first. The attorney-client relationship began after a lending application contained Marianne's signature without her consent. Mason closed his eyes. Lily looked from her mother to me. Mom, she said quietly. What application? Vanessa ignored her. Dana removed the first document. It was a certified copy of my deed. She placed it in front of Robert. This public record shows Marianne purchased the property before the marriage and remains the sole titled owner, Dana said. There is no mortgage and no recorded lien. Robert read it slowly. I had shown him the deed years earlier. He knew the facts. But seeing the stamped copy in front of witnesses stripped away the comfortable blur he had lived inside, Vanessa gave a short laugh. Nobody said she did not buy it. You scheduled a photographer for it, I said. For planning. You submitted it as proposed collateral. Her face changed. Mason looked at her. What did she say? Nothing, Vanessa replied. Dana placed the preliminary lending application beside the deed. Robert's name appeared first. Mine appeared below it. Beside my name were the words, non-occupying spouse. Robert removed his glasses and rubbed them with the edge of his napkin. It was a habit he used when he needed time. What is this? He asked. Vanessa spoke quickly. It was only a scenario. A financial model. No one was taking money. Dana pointed to the upper corner. It has an application number, a requested amount, and consent for valuation. Mason reached for the page. How much? Dana looked at me. I nodded. $310,000, she said. The room changed. Robert's brother whispered something I could not hear. Lily stared at her mother. Mason read the amount twice. You told me you were exploring a line for $100,000, he said. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Because that was before the supplier lawsuit. What supplier lawsuit? She froze. Mason stood. What lawsuit? Vanessa. She looked toward the family room, then back at him. This is not the place. It became the place when you put my property in the file, I said. Dana removed the signature authorization. She slid it toward me but left enough space for everyone to see. I pointed to the final stroke in my last name. This came from the roof replacement contract, I said. The pen skipped on the carbon copy. Whoever uploaded this used that old scan. Robert stared at the page. His face drained of color. Vanessa, he whispered. She looked at him with tears already forming. Dad, I was trying to save everything. There it was. Not denial. Justification. Mason lowered himself into his chair. Save what? She turned toward him. The business. Our house. Your employees. Lily's college fund. All of it. You said the restructuring was approved. It was supposed to be. You said the hospital dispute was settled. It will be. When Vanessa pressed both hands against the table, I needed time. So you used Marianne's house, Lily said. Her voice was small but clear. Vanessa turned toward her daughter. You do not understand. Then explain it, Lily said. No one had ever challenged Vanessa in that tone. Not Robert. Not Mason. Certainly not me. The room waited. Vanessa looked around at every face and realized the story she had prepared was no longer enough. She sat down. Mason's company owes a balloon payment in January, she said. $284,000 plus fees. If we miss it, the lender can take the equipment and pursue us personally. Mason looked sick. I knew about the balloon. I did not know about another application. We had no other choice. We could sell our house. There is almost no equity. Because of the second mortgage and the tax lien, Dana said. Vanessa glared at her. Dana did not react. Robert leaned forward. You told me your house was nearly paid off. Vanessa covered her face for a moment. We refinanced during the expansion. How many times? She did not answer. Mason answered for her. Twice. Robert looked at me. I saw the moment he remembered our argument 3 years earlier, when I refused to fund the cutting machine. You knew, he said. I knew the numbers did not work. Vanessa dropped her hands. You always have to be right. No, I said. I wanted to be wrong. Being wrong would have cost me pride. Being right nearly cost me my home. She pushed back from the table. Nothing happened. The loan never closed. Because I found it. Because the lender found a technical issue. The technical issue was that you did not own the property. She stood. I was going to tell you, after the appraisal, after the approval, after the money arrived. She looked toward Robert. Dad would have convinced you. Robert flinched, as though she had struck him. You used me, he said. Vanessa's expression softened. No, I trusted you. You sent me forms and told me they were care planning documents, they were related to planning. You knew I would not sign a loan against Marianne's house. I knew you would understand once you saw what was at stake. Robert stood. What was at stake? My company, your company, my future, your future. He pointed toward me. And what was her future supposed to be? Vanessa looked at the Maple Terrace folder. No one needed an answer. Nora moved from the doorway and placed a second file on the table. I found these in the county property alert enrollment records, she said. Vanessa requested information about expedited recording and remote notarization 2 months ago. Vanessa's eyes widened. That was a general question. Nora nodded. It may have been, but it became relevant after a false signature appeared in a loan file. Robert stared at his daughter. Were you going to forge a mortgage? No. Were you? No, she shouted. I thought Marianne would sign once. Dad explained everything. Then why copy her signature before asking? I said. She opened her mouth. No words came. The answer was simple. She had not expected consent. She had expected momentum. Once the appraisal was complete, once the family believed I was moving, once Robert was emotionally committed, she thought refusing would make me look cruel. That was the real loan she had taken against me. Not money, pressure. Dana returned the papers to a neat stack. We are not finished, she said. Vanessa looked exhausted now. What else could there possibly be? I looked at Robert. The trust, his eyes closed. Marianne, You need to know what it says. He sat down again. Dana removed the certificate of trust. She did not display private beneficiary details. She explained only the provisions relevant to the house. Robert has a protected right to live here if Marianne dies first, she said. That right cannot be sold, assigned, or used as collateral. The property then passes according to the trust. Vanessa leaned forward. To whom? That information is private. I answered anyway. Part will support transitional housing for women leaving military service. Part will fund Lily's education. Nora will serve as independent trustee. Lily blinked. Me. A trust for education, I said. Not cash handed over without conditions. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Of course. Even your generosity comes with inspection clauses. My career taught me that love and controls can exist together. You do not trust us. I trusted you for 20 years. The sentence landed harder than any accusation. Mason lowered his head. Robert stared at the certificate. When did you do this? I revised it in April. Why did you not tell me? I tried. He looked up. When? The night after your physical therapy appointment. You said estate talk could wait. He remembered. And the Sunday we drove home from Nora's retirement dinner, you turned on the baseball game, his shoulders sank. I remembered that too. Vanessa seized on his discomfort. See? She planned all of this secretly. Dana looked at her. Your stepmother's private estate plan did not authorize you to create a lending application in her name. Vanessa looked away. Robert read the certificate again. So I can live here, he said. Yes, but I cannot borrow against it, correct? He gave a tired laugh that contained no humor. That condition seems less insulting now. I had not added it to punish him. I had added it because he avoided difficult boundaries, and Vanessa turned avoidance into access. The truth was on the table now, but the deepest wound was still in Dana's envelope. A letter. Not one I had written to Robert. One Vanessa had written to Maple Terrace. Dana handed me a copy. The lender had received it as support for the claim that I planned to move. It was on plain paper, but the language sounded official. My stepmother has experienced increasing fatigue, confusion regarding household finances, and resistance to age-appropriate care. Our family has selected a community where she will receive support. My father will remain in the residence as his primary home. I read the paragraph aloud. Robert looked at me in disbelief. Confusion regarding finances. Vanessa stared at the table. I needed a reason for the occupancy change. You told a lender I was cognitively impaired. I did not use that word. You knew exactly what the words implied. Robert took the page from me. He read it once. Then again. His hand began to shake. Did I approve this? He asked. Vanessa said nothing. Did you tell anyone I had approved it? She whispered. I said the family agreed. Robert set the page down as if it were contaminated. I spent 30 years signing maintenance releases, he said. If my name was connected to a false statement, Cruz could have lost trust in me. People could have been hurt. This is not an airplane, Vanessa said. No. He looked at her. It is my wife. The room went quiet. I had waited years to hear him place those words in the correct order. My wife. Not your concern. Not everyone's problem. My wife. Vanessa began to cry. At first, I felt nothing. Then I saw Lily watching her mother, and anger gave way to something more complicated. Vanessa had done something calculated and cruel. She was also a terrified woman who had built a life too expensive to admit was failing. Fear explained her. It did not excuse her. Mason spoke without looking up. How long have you known the business could not make the January payment? Since May, she said. You told me the bank extended it. They refused. And the supplier lawsuit? We are being sued for $140,000. Robert's brother let out a slow breath. Vanessa closed her eyes. I thought if we could get one large line, we could finish the medical office contract, pay the supplier, and stabilize. Mason shook his head. There is no medical office contract. She looked at him. What? They canceled yesterday. Her face collapsed. For several seconds, she did not breathe. Then she made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not a sob, something lower. The sound of a person watching the last wall fall. She covered her mouth. I did all of this for nothing. No, I said. You did it because you believed the outcome would make the method acceptable. She looked at me through tears. You would have let us lose everything. I would have helped you make a legal plan. By saying no. Sometimes no is the first honest line in a rescue plan. She shook her head. You never understood what it feels like to have everything depend on you. I leaned back. For 3 decades, aircraft programs depended on contracts I signed. Young airmen waited for parts my team purchased. Taxpayers trusted us with money we did not own. Responsibility is not permission to lie. She looked down. Nora reached into her canvas case. There was one more document, not legal, personal. She handed it to Robert. He recognized the envelope. I had found it in his desk while searching for the electronic forms he signed. It was addressed to him in Claire's handwriting. Robert had kept it sealed for 24 years. He looked at me, startled. Where did you find this? In the bottom drawer beneath your retirement papers. Why is it here? Because Vanessa photographed it. Vanessa's head rose sharply. I saw the image in the loan folder on your tablet, I said. You had taken pictures of documents in this house. That letter was among them. Robert held the envelope as though it might break. Why did you photograph your mother's letter? Vanessa wiped her cheeks. I was looking for Dad's will. The room seemed to shrink. She continued because there was no clean place left to hide. I thought Claire might have written something about taking care of me. Something that would prove Dad wanted the house to stay with his family. His family. The words hurt differently now. Robert looked at the unopened envelope. I never read this, he said. Vanessa stared at him. What? Your mother gave it to me during her last week. She said to open it when I was afraid loving someone new would betray her. I never opened it because I thought keeping it sealed was a form of loyalty. He looked at me. Maybe it was another form of avoidance. Dana stepped back. This part was not law. It belonged to us. Robert slid his thumb beneath the old flap. The paper inside was thin and creased. Robert unfolded it carefully. His eyes moved across the first lines. Then he stopped. He sat down. What does it say? Vanessa whispered. He tried to answer, but his voice failed. He handed the page to me. I did not want to read Claire's private words aloud. Then I saw the first sentence. Robert, if you are reading this, it means life has given you another chance to love, and you are frightened that accepting it will erase me. I looked at him. Tears ran openly down his face. He nodded for me to continue. Claire wrote that Vanessa would test any woman he loved. She wrote that grief might make their daughter cling, compete, or confuse loyalty with possession. She asked Robert not to reward cruelty out of guilt. Then came the line that changed the room. Do not prove you loved me by failing the woman who comes after me. Vanessa made a broken sound. I stopped reading. Robert covered his eyes. For 24 years, the answer had waited in a drawer while all of us built our lives around his fear of opening it. Vanessa stood and backed away from the table. I need air. Robert lowered his hands. No. She stared at him. No. His voice was not loud. It was steady in a way I had not heard since his retirement ceremony. You do not get to leave before we decide what happens next. Her face hardened out of habit. I am not a child. Then stay and answer as an adult. Mason looked at him with surprise. So did I. Robert turned toward me. Marianne, I need to say this before I lose my nerve. He rose. His shoulders had rounded with age. But for a moment I saw the maintenance superintendent, who had once stopped an entire launch because a junior mechanic reported a vibration no one else believed. He faced the family. I knew Vanessa wanted us to consider moving, he said. I knew she had sent me electronic forms. I did not know she used Marianne's signature. I did not know about the amount, the business debt, or the statement claiming Marianne was confused. He paused. But I am not innocent. Vanessa looked at him. Dad, I signed without reading. I agreed to conversations about Marianne's future without Marianne in the room. I listened when my daughter described my wife as an obstacle. and I told myself I was being neutral. He shook his head. There was nothing neutral about it. He turned to me. I let her rehearse your removal until the idea sounded ordinary. My throat tightened. He continued. When she asked where you should eat today, I heard her. I knew it was wrong. I stayed in the bedroom because I did not want to fight. He looked around the table. A man can call himself peaceful while someone else pays the price for his comfort. No one moved. Robert faced Vanessa again. I promised your mother I would protect you. I turned that promise into permission. I excused things I should have corrected because every time you were upset, I felt like I was failing. Claire, Vanessa cried silently. I did fail, Claire, he said, just not in the way I feared. He touched the old letter. She asked me to teach you that love does not require someone else to lose. Vanessa's knees seemed to weaken. Mason pulled out a chair, and she sat. Robert looked at me. I failed you too? I did not answer immediately. Apologies are not magic. They do not reverse signatures or restore years. But a real apology names the harm without asking the harmed person to make it easier. Robert had finally named it. I believe you are sorry, I said. Hope flashed across his face. I am not ready to tell you what that means for our marriage. The hope became pain. He nodded. That is fair. Vanessa stared at the trust documents. Are you sending us to jail? She asked. The question revealed how much she had known. Dana answered carefully. The lender's fraud department has the file. Marianne has submitted an identity theft affidavit and preserved evidence. No funds were dispersed and no mortgage was recorded. What happens next will depend on the lender, any investigating agency, and whether you cooperate. Marianne cannot promise you a particular outcome. Vanessa looked at me. I wanted to say I would protect her. That had been my instinct for years. Instead, I told the truth. I will not lie for you. She closed her eyes. Dana continued. You need independent counsel. Do not destroy messages or alter records. Do not contact the lender except through your attorney. Those are not threats. They are the safest steps available to you now. Mason nodded slowly. I will call someone tomorrow. Vanessa turned toward him. We cannot afford a lawyer. We cannot afford another lie, he said. Lily began crying. That broke something in all of us. She stood so abruptly her napkin fell to the floor. I thought Maple Terrace was for both of you, she said to her mother. You told me Grandma Marianne wanted a place with a pool. Vanessa looked at her daughter. I was trying to make it sound less frightening. For whom? Lily asked. Her or you? Vanessa had no answer. Lily walked around the table and stopped beside me. Can I sit with you? The question was simple. It carried the weight of the empty place setting. I moved my chair slightly, and she pulled another beside it. Vanessa watched her daughter choose a seat next to the woman she had tried to remove. Her face crumpled. At that moment, anger would have been easy. Humiliation would have been easy. I could have listed every check I had written, every holiday I had hosted, every slight I had swallowed. Instead, I looked at the family and understood that revenge was not the same as repair. Repair required boundaries strong enough to hold truth. I stood. Here is what happens tonight, I said. Vanessa and Mason will leave after we finish this conversation. They will not take documents, keys, mail, or anything from the house. The garage code will change. Robert will give me access to every form he signed and every message he received. Dana will handle all legal communication. No one will speak for me about my health, my property, or my future again. Vanessa nodded faintly. I continued. There will be no family loan. Mason closed his eyes, but he nodded. There will be no sale of this house. Robert said, understood. And there will be no pretending this was a misunderstanding. Vanessa looked at me. I understand. No, I said. You understand that I caught you. Understanding what you did will take longer. She began to cry again. I did not comfort her. Not because I hated her, because consequences should not be interrupted before they teach. Robert placed Claire's letter on the table. I have one condition too, he said. Vanessa looked at him. You will never again use your mother's memory as a reason to disrespect Marianne. I did not. You did every time you called me choosing my wife a betrayal. Vanessa stared at the old letter. Then she whispered, I was scared she would replace Mom. Robert's expression softened but did not collapse. She never tried. I know. Do you? Vanessa looked at me. I kept waiting for you to demand her place, she said. You kept refusing to. That made me angrier. Why? Because then I had no reason to hate you. The honesty was ugly. It was also the first useful thing she had said. I sat down. Vanessa, I said, Claire's place was never available. Neither was mine. She nodded through tears. I know that now. Knowing was not healing, but it was a beginning. If you have ever watched silence become permission inside a family, please remember this moment. Boundaries are not cruelty, and truth is not betrayal. Share this story with someone who has been asked to disappear just to keep everyone else comfortable. Because sometimes one honest witness is enough to change an entire room. No one ate the Thanksgiving dinner while it was warm. By the time the documents were back in Dana's case, the gravy had formed a skin and the turkey had cooled beneath the foil. Mason helped Lily put on her coat. Vanessa stood in the foyer with her purse hanging from one shoulder. She looked smaller than she had when she removed my chair. At the door, she turned toward Robert. Are you coming with us? He looked at me, then back at her. No. Her mouth tightened. Of course. Do not do that, he said. Do what? Turn my staying with my wife into rejection of you. She looked away. I do not know how else to see it. Then that is something you need to learn. She opened the door. Cold air moved through the hallway. For a second, I remembered the 11-year-old girl in the yellow softball jersey, watching me as if my presence might erase her mother. I wanted to tell her everything would be all right. It would have been a lie. So I said, call Dana's office before you contact the lender. Vanessa nodded. Mason placed a hand near her back but did not touch her. Lily hugged me. Not the polite half hug she usually gave at holidays, a full one. I am sorry, she whispered. You did not do this. I believed her. That is not the same thing. No, I said, it is not. But you are allowed to change your mind when you learn the truth. She pulled away and wiped her eyes. Are you still my grandma? The question almost broke me. I had never asked her to use that word. Vanessa had always encouraged Grandma Marianne, a title with a careful distance built into it. I touched Lily's cheek. I am still me. What you call me is your choice. She nodded. Then they left. Robert closed the door. The house became quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. Those are different things. Nora and Dana stayed long enough to help place the food in containers. Nora threw away the beige disposable napkins and found my cloth ones in the pantry. Dana packed the documents and reminded me not to discuss details by text. Before leaving, she looked at Robert. You should retain separate counsel if investigators request an interview, she said. Even if you believe you did nothing wrong, do not guess about documents you signed. He nodded. I will. When the door closed behind them, Robert and I stood alone in the dining room. The bare place at the table remained. He walked over, lifted the chair Vanessa had moved, and returned it. Then he set a plate in front of it. The gesture was too late. It still mattered. I sat. He took the chair across from me. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The football game had ended. Snow thickened outside. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. Robert touched Claire's letter, which Dana had allowed him to keep. I spent half my life afraid to read this, he said. Why? Because I thought she might tell me not to remarry. And if she had, he considered the question. I do not know. That frightened me more than his silence. He unfolded the letter again. She knew me better than I knew myself. She knew your weakness. He nodded. Guilt. Avoidance. Those are related. I suppose they are. I looked toward the sideboard. Did you ever truly believe I needed assisted living? No. Did you ever believe I was confused about money? Absolutely not. Then why did you let her say it? He closed his eyes. Because challenging her would have forced me to admit the move was not about care. What did you think it was, about inheritance? The words sat between us. He continued. After you explained the trust in March, Vanessa called me. She was furious. She said you were making sure nothing of mine stayed with my blood family. And what did you say? I told her you had the right to decide. Did you defend the plan? No, why not? Because part of me was hurt. I appreciated the honesty. It did not make the answer easier. You have lifetime occupancy, I said. You have your retirement accounts. You have insurance. You have never paid the mortgage on this house. I know. What did you feel entitled to? He looked down. The ability to decide what happened after you were gone. That is ownership. I know. Did you resent me? No. He paused. Maybe I resented needing your permission. There it was. A truth beneath the truth. Robert had moved into a house owned by a younger woman with a stronger pension and a career that often placed her in the room with senior leaders. He loved me. He was also proud. Vanessa had found the bruise he did not admit existed. She told him the house should feel like his after 2 decades. She told him a husband should not need his wife's approval to help his daughter. She told him the trust made him a guest. He never repeated those words to me, but he let them work. I leaned back. You were not a guest until you began helping someone else treat me like one. He looked at me. I know. What do you want now? I asked. To fix this. That is not specific. He gave a weary nod. I want to cooperate with the investigation. I want to tell Dana everything. I want to start counseling alone or together, if you are willing. I want to earn the right to stay married to you. The sentence surprised me. Not keep the marriage. Earn the right to stay in it. I folded my hands. I am willing to attend counseling. I am not promising the outcome. I understand. For the next week, you will sleep in the basement room. Payne crossed his face. All right? You will not delete any messages. You will give Dana copies of every account and device Vanessa used. All right? You will not warn her about questions investigators may ask. I will not. And you will stop calling your silence peace. He nodded. I will. We ate cold turkey at nearly 9 that night. Not because we were hungry, because the meal had taken 2 days to prepare, and I refused to let another person's deception decide whether my work had value. The turkey was dry. The stuffing was excellent. Robert washed every dish. I slept with the bedroom door locked. The weeks after Thanksgiving did not unfold like a television ending. There was no single apology that repaired everything. There were interviews, letters, bank records, and long pauses between phone calls. Heritage Equity Lending closed the application and referred the file to its fraud unit. Because no money had been disbursed and the false signature was caught before notarization or recording, the legal process focused on attempted deception and identity misuse rather than a completed mortgage fraud loss. Vanessa hired an attorney. On his advice, she preserved her devices and gave a written statement. She admitted creating the application. She admitted copying my signature from the roofing contract. She admitted uploading the letter that described me as confused. She claimed she believed Robert could eventually persuade me to approve the transaction. The lender did not accept that explanation as consent. Neither did I. Her employer placed her on leave after learning she had used licensed document software and a work-issued scanning application for personal purposes. A month later, the credit union terminated her. She lost the career she had spent 16 years building. Mason's cabinet company entered a court-supervised restructuring. The equipment lender repossessed 2 machines. Mason laid off most of his employees and sold the warehouse lease. Their large house went on the market in February. It sold for less than they owed after fees. They moved into a 2-bedroom rental near Kettering. Lily changed schools by choice because she wanted to remain close to friends, so Vanessa drove her across town every morning. None of that gave me pleasure. Consequences are not always satisfying when they land on people you once packed lunches for. Robert cooperated fully. His tablet showed he had signed 2 limited electronic authorizations. One allowed a credit inquiry in his name. The other allowed financial estimates. Neither contained my signature or pledged the property. Investigators determined he had been careless, not knowingly involved in the false documents. That distinction mattered legally. It did not erase what happened emotionally. We began marriage counseling in December with Dr. Helen Ward, a former Air Force Family Services counselor whose office overlooked a frozen pond. At our first session, Robert gave a long explanation of Vanessa's childhood grief. Dr. Ward listened. Then she asked one question. When did your daughter's pain become more important than your wife's safety? Robert stopped speaking. That question followed us home. In counseling, I learned that I had my own habit to confront. I documented everything except my feelings. I could explain a broken procurement process in 5 bullet points. I could reconstruct a timeline from emails and receipts. But when someone hurt me, I often reduced the experience to facts and waited for the other person to reach the obvious conclusion. Robert rarely did. Dr. Ward told me clarity was not the same as accusation. So I practiced sentences that felt uncomfortable. When you sign without reading, I feel unsafe. When you discuss my future without me, I feel erased. When you ask me to be patient with Vanessa, I hear that her comfort matters more than mine. Robert practiced answers that did not begin with, but that was harder for him than any aircraft inspection. He moved back into our bedroom in March. Not because everything was resolved, because he had spent 4 months doing what he promised. He attended counseling. He organized every financial record. He wrote a full statement for Dana. He changed the garage code and refused to give it to Vanessa. When she called crying about the house sale, he listened without offering my money. The first time he told her, I love you and I cannot rescue you from this, he shook for an hour afterward. I sat beside him. I did not congratulate him. Boundaries are not performances. They are habits. Vanessa did not contact me directly for 3 months. In early March, a letter arrived. The envelope had my full name written carefully across the front. I placed it on the kitchen counter and left it there until evening. Robert saw it but did not tell me to open it. That mattered. When I finally did, I found 6 handwritten pages. Vanessa began without excuses. Marianne, I used your kindness as evidence that you would eventually surrender. I read that sentence twice. She wrote that she had spent years believing the house was the physical proof of her father's loyalty. Claire had never lived there, but Vanessa knew Robert moved into a home I already owned. Some part of her had interpreted that as him entering my life instead of building one with her. Every repair I paid for made her feel less connected. Every holiday tradition I created felt like another layer over the family she lost. She knew those feelings were irrational. She had protected them anyway. Then the business failed. Fear turned resentment into a plan. She told herself the house would someday pass to Robert. She told herself borrowing against it early was not theft, only timing. She told herself I would be comfortable at Maple Terrace. She told herself the loan would save Mason's company and be repaid before anyone suffered. Each lie made the next lie easier. The final page contained a sentence that stayed with me. I did not remove your chair because I thought you were not family. I removed it because I needed everyone else to practice seeing you as temporary. I had suspected that. Reading it in her handwriting was different. She ended by saying she did not expect forgiveness and would follow any no-contact boundary I requested. I folded the pages and returned them to the envelope. Robert waited at the kitchen table. How do you feel? He asked. Angry. He nodded. Anything else? Relieved that she finally named it. Do you want to answer? Not yet. He did not ask again. 2 weeks later, Lily called. She asked whether she could visit without her parents. I said yes. Robert picked her up on Saturday afternoon. She arrived carrying a cardboard box. Inside were the decorations Vanessa had removed from my house in September. My mother's gravy boat, the hand-painted wooden turkeys. The old Air Force ornament shaped like a cargo plane. A framed photograph of Robert and me at his retirement ceremony. Mom had these in our storage unit, Lily said. She told me to return them. I lifted the cargo plane ornament. One wing had been repaired with clear glue years earlier after Vanessa knocked it from the tree during an argument. I had forgotten that. Lily sat at the kitchen table. She looks terrible, she said. Your mother. She barely sleeps. I am sorry. Are you? The question carried teenage suspicion. I answered honestly. I am sorry she is hurting. I am not sorry the loan failed. Lily nodded slowly. That makes sense. She picked at the edge of the cardboard box. Mom says she might have to go to court. That is possible. Do you want her punished? I considered the word. I want the truth documented. I want my home protected. I want her to understand that being frightened does not give her the right to use another person's identity. That is not what I asked. No, it is not. I looked at her. Part of me wants punishment. Part of me remembers braiding her hair before softball tournaments. Both parts are real. Lily's eyes filled. Can families survive both? Sometimes. How? By refusing to call accountability hatred. She wiped her cheek. She asked me to give you something else. From her pocket, Lily removed a small brass key. It was the old emergency key to my front door. Vanessa had kept it for years. I closed my hand around it. That return mattered more than the letter. Words said she understood. The key said she was giving up access. By late spring, the legal questions became clearer. The county prosecutor offered Vanessa a diversion agreement because no funds had been released, she had no prior record, and she cooperated before formal charges were filed. The agreement required restitution for investigative costs, financial ethics, counseling, community service, and a period of supervision. If she completed every condition and committed no new offense, the attempted identity misuse charge would not become a permanent conviction. Dana reminded me that the decision belonged to the prosecutor, not to me. I appreciated that. Families often believe victims control every consequence. We do not. We can report facts, provide evidence, and state the harm. The system decides what follows. Vanessa accepted the agreement. She began community service at a nonprofit that helped veterans organize debt, benefits, and housing applications. The irony was sharp enough that even Dana raised an eyebrow. At first, Vanessa sorted files in a back office. Then the director discovered she understood loan documents and asked her to help clients identify predatory terms. She was not allowed to handle funds. She was supervised closely. She hated it. Then, slowly, she became good at it. That summer, I received a note from the nonprofit director. She did not share private client information. She simply said Vanessa had helped an older Air Force widow understand why a contractor wanted her to sign a financing agreement secured by her home. The widow did not sign. I sat with that note for a long time. Using the same skill to protect someone did not erase her misuse. It proved change was possible. Mason closed the cabinet company in June. He found work managing production for a smaller manufacturer in Dayton. The salary was lower. The hours were steadier. He and Vanessa began marriage counseling. For the first time in years, they lived on a written budget. Lily found a summer job at the public library. Robert built raised garden beds in our backyard and planted tomatoes too close together. I told him they would crowd. He said the plants needed community. I said plants also needed airflow. That became our longest argument of July. It felt almost normal. Not the old normal, where discomfort disappeared under jokes. A better normal, where we could disagree without recruiting silence. In August, Vanessa asked Dana whether she could send me a request for a mediated conversation. I agreed on 3 conditions. The meeting would happen in Dana's office. Robert would attend, but not speak for either of us. Vanessa would answer questions directly. She accepted. The day of the meeting, she arrived early, wearing a plain navy dress and carrying no purse. She looked older than she had at Thanksgiving. Not physically aged, reduced to scale. Without the large house, luxury vehicle, bank title, and certainty, she seemed like the woman beneath the structure. We sat across a conference table. Dana reviewed the ground rules. Vanessa began. I am sorry. I waited. She swallowed. I know that is not enough. It is a start. She looked at me. I used your signature. I lied about your health. I tried to create a situation where saying no would make you look selfish. I involved Dad because I knew he would avoid confronting me. I involved Lily by telling her a false story about Maple Terrace. I damaged your trust in your home and your marriage. No excuses, no childhood speech, no mention of Claire. I asked the question that had bothered me most. What would you have done if the lender approved the application? Vanessa looked down. I would have taken the approval to Dad first, and then I would have told him Mason's company would close without the money, and then I would have asked him to persuade you. What if I still refused? She was quiet for a long time. I had a draft petition on my computer. Robert shifted beside me. What petition? He asked. Dana lifted one hand. Let her answer Marianne. Vanessa continued. A guardianship consultation form. I had not filed anything. I was gathering information about whether concern over financial judgment could support temporary authority. The room tilted. Even after everything I had learned, that shocked me. You were preparing to claim I could not manage my affairs. She nodded, crying. I told myself it was leverage. I told myself I would never use it. But you prepared it. Yes. Robert stood. Dana said his name sharply. He sat again. His face was gray. I looked at Vanessa. What evidence did you think you had? The Maple Terrace inquiries. The statement that you were fatigued. Dad's signature on the planning forms. Notes about you refusing family financial assistance. My refusal to give you money? She nodded. You plan to call that impaired judgment. I plan to suggest it might be. The distinction was disgusting. It was also why her profession mattered. Vanessa understood that official forms create the appearance of truth before truth is tested. She had tried to build a paper trail. Not enough to win a real case, Dana later told me, but enough to frighten me. Enough to make relatives wonder. Enough to pressure a settlement. I asked one final question. Why tell me now? The diversion agreement did not require this disclosure. Vanessa took a folded document from her folder because I deleted the draft before Thanksgiving and did not mention it in my first statement. My attorney told me the deletion may still exist in backup records. I amended my statement yesterday. She slid the page to Dana. I do not want another hidden thing waiting to destroy us. For the first time, I believed she wanted truth more than control. That did not mean I trusted her. Trust is not a door that opens because someone finally knocks correctly. It is a house rebuilt board by board. I told her the conditions for future contact. No access to our financial records. No keys. No discussions of inheritance. No private conversations with Robert about my health or property. No visits without invitation. If she had concerns about my capacity, she would speak to me directly or to Dana, not create family evidence. Vanessa agreed to every condition. Then she asked whether I wanted her out of my life permanently. I looked at Robert. He kept his eyes on me. Good. The decision was mine. I do not know yet, I said, but I am willing to see what you do next. She nodded. That was all I could offer. It was more than she expected. The first invitation came in October, not to Thanksgiving, but to coffee near the Base Museum. For 40 minutes, we discussed Lily's school, Robert's tomatoes, Mason's job, and the nonprofit. Vanessa did not mention the house or ask for forgiveness. She paid for her own coffee. That almost made me smile. The next month, she and Lily visited on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Vanessa brought deep blue cloth napkins embroidered with stars. I know buying something does not fix anything, she said. No, I replied, but they are beautiful. We used them that Sunday, not on Thanksgiving Day. I was not ready for that anniversary. Robert supported the boundary without negotiation. Thanksgiving was quiet. Nora came, Dana stopped for pie, and Lily divided the afternoon between us and her parents. The empty chair remained in the basement. Some symbols need time. Winter passed. Robert and I continued counseling every other week. By spring, Dr. Ward asked whether we still needed regular sessions. Robert said yes before I could answer. I looked at him. He smiled. Maintenance prevents emergency grounding. It was the most Air Force thing he had said in years. We moved to monthly appointments. Vanessa completed her diversion requirements the following summer. The prosecutor dismissed the pending charge after confirming her compliance. Her credit union did not rehire her. She knew it never would. The nonprofit offered her a paid position as a financial document coordinator. The salary was modest. She accepted. Mason and Vanessa remained married. Not happily ever after, but honestly, they sold what they could not afford, discussed debt before crisis, and stopped performing prosperity. At Lily's graduation, she gave tickets to Mason, Vanessa, Robert, and me. In one photograph, Vanessa stood beside me and waited. I placed my hand lightly on her shoulder. The picture hangs in our hallway because it proves we showed up. The warmest surprise came 2 years after the Thanksgiving confrontation. Lily had been accepted to the University of Cincinnati. She planned to study public administration and minor in accounting. She said she wanted to understand how systems could protect people instead of intimidating them. The education trust would cover much of her tuition, so I invited the family to a June dinner to explain it. We grilled chicken, Robert overcooked the corn, and Nora brought strawberry pie. After dinner, Lily handed me a form from the university. Emergency contact, she said. I looked at the first line. Robert Cole. The second line contained my name. Relationship, grandmother. No extra word, no careful distance, just grandmother. I looked at her. Are you sure? She smiled. I have been sure for a while. Vanessa stood near the kitchen sink. Our eyes met. For a second, I saw pain in her face. Then something changed. She nodded. Not permission, acceptance. Later that evening, after everyone left, Robert found me sitting at the dining table with the form in front of me. He rested a hand on my shoulder. You all right? I am. He looked at the relationship line and smiled. Claire would have liked that. For years, Claire's name had felt like a loyalty test. This time, it felt like a bridge. I think she would have, I said. The next Thanksgiving, 3 years after Vanessa removed my seat, I invited her family back for the full holiday. I did not make the decision lightly. I spoke with Dana, Dr. Ward, and finally myself. Forgiveness without evidence is hope. After sustained change, it can become judgment. Vanessa had spent 3 years telling the truth when lies would have been easier. She had repaid the lender's investigative costs. She had completed supervision. She had respected every boundary. She had never asked about the trust. She had never requested a key. She had never arrived uninvited. It did not restore the old relationship. It created a different one. Thanksgiving morning brought soft snow. Robert woke before dawn and tried to follow 3 turkey recipes at once. Pick one system, I told him. Redundancy improves reliability. Not in gravy. By noon, the house smelled like sage and coffee. Nora brought pie, Dana sent flowers, and Robert's brother brought rolls. At 3, the doorbell rang. Vanessa stood on the porch beside Mason and Lily. She carried my mother's gravy boat in both hands. I repaired the chip, she said. A ceramics teacher at the nonprofit knew how. The thin crack along the rim had been filled and sealed. A faint gold line traced the repair. It was not invisible. That made it beautiful. Vanessa looked nervous. May we come in? 3 years earlier, she had entered without asking. Now, she waited. I stepped aside. Yes. They removed their shoes. Mason carried a casserole. Lily brought the blue cloth napkins. Vanessa walked to the dining room and stopped. The chair she had removed was back at the table. A place card rested in front of it. Marianne? She touched the card but did not move it. I made the cards, Lily said. Vanessa looked at me. Where do you want me to sit? Anywhere there is a place. She found the card with her name. It was not beside Robert. It was across from me. She sat. No one gave a speech. We passed food, argued about football, and laughed when Nora said Robert's rolls could serve as wheel chalks. For the first hour, the meal was ordinary. Ordinary can be sacred after a family has survived the consequences of pretending. When dessert arrived, Lily stood. I have something, she said. She went to the living room and returned with a small wooden box. Inside was the old cargo plane ornament. The wing had broken again. This time, a narrow gold seam repaired it. It matched the gravy boat. The ceramics teacher helped me with the idea, Vanessa said. The ornament is wood, so Mason did the actual repair. I lifted it carefully. Why gold? Lily answered. Because repaired things do not have to hide where they broke. The room became still. Vanessa looked at me. I spent most of my life hiding every crack, she said. Then I tried to turn you into one. I held the ornament. I do not know whether a family ever becomes unbroken again. Maybe unbroken is the wrong goal. A repaired family remembers pressure. It respects weak points. It stops pretending damage never happened. After dinner, we carried the ornament to the living room. Robert placed a small hook on it. Vanessa stood beside the tree but did not reach. Would you hang it? I asked. She looked surprised. Are you sure? Yes. She placed the cargo plane on a branch near Claire's blue ceramic angel, which Vanessa had brought from her apartment years earlier. The ornaments hung side by side. Different histories. Same tree. Then Lily reached into her pocket and handed me a new place card. I thought she had made an extra. On the front, in careful handwriting, were 2 words. Grandma Marianne. I laughed through tears. You already put my name at the table. That one was for everyone else, she said. This one is for you. I turned it over. On the back she had written, You were never temporary. Vanessa covered her mouth. Robert looked toward the window. Nora openly cried and blamed the onions. I placed the card beneath the repaired ornament. That was the warm twist I never expected. The house had never been the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the story Lily would carry forward, a story about how fear can disguise itself as concern, how professional knowledge can become a weapon when character fails, how a quiet spouse can cause harm without signing the false paper, how accountability can protect love from becoming permission, and how a woman can defend her place without closing the door forever. I still own the house. The trust remains. The property alerts arrive, and the garage code stays private. Forgiveness did not make me careless. Love should never require that. But when I sit at the dining table now, I no longer look for proof that I belong. I know. Not because my name is on a deed, not because an attorney confirmed it, not because everyone finally apologized. I belong because I stopped asking other people to grant me the place I had already built. That Thanksgiving, after the dishes were done, snow covered the front walk. Robert turned off the porch light. Vanessa wrapped the repaired gravy boat in a towel and placed it in my cabinet, not hers. Lily tucked the Grandma Marianne card beneath the cargo plane ornament, and before she left, she paused at the front door. See you at Christmas, Grandma, she said, no question in her voice. No permission requested, just a promise. I watched the 3 of them walk toward their car while Robert stood beside me. The door remained open long enough for cold air to move through the house. Then I closed it gently. Not to keep family out, to protect the warmth we had finally learned how to deserve.